CJ here. I am here today with Lisa Olien, one of the top agents here. I'm excited to learn more about her story and hear about her pathway to success here at Chris Lindahl Real Estate. Let's jump right in. Lisa Olien.
Hey.
Where'd you grow up?
New Richmond, Wisconsin.
Oh, so you grew up there too?
Yeah.
And you live there currently?
Yeah.
So you're like a lifer.
Well, I mean, I did venture out for a little bit. Like, I went to Egan for a few years. From there, I went back to New Richmond because I'm like, I miss my friends, whatever.
What's
Things
the
were
population?
cheaper.
Is it big city?
Well, when I moved there, I was 5.
Yeah.
From the Twin Cities.
Oh, so you don't even claim the Twin Cities? Like, you're like, oh,
no,
I'm New Richmond.
No,
like
because my
5
parents
years
were
old.
originally from there.
Okay.
Then they went over to the Twin Cities. My dad was a big construction worker. Like, he'd do the big buildings like the IDS and Neiman Marcus and those types of places. But then, I don't know, when my brother and sister were like in 7th or 8th grade, they're older than me.
Yeah.
They thought St. Paul was getting a little rough.
Okay.
So they hauled us back to New Richmond, and that's all I really remember.
Okay.
So anyway, there were 2,700 people there when we moved
back.
there in 1974, and now we're up to like 11,000.
Okay.
So it's like
growing. What's the
crazy.
other big cities by it, or what is it closest to?
Hudson is the closest one.
Hudson.
Somerset.
How far is Hudson?
From us, about 23 miles.
So this is, I mean, you were born in the Twin Cities, right? Mm-hmm. Live in New Richmond.
Yeah.
Vikings or Packers?
Oh, Packers.
Oh, okay.
For sure.
So you're legit from Wisconsin.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but again, going back to my brother and sister, since they lived in Minnesota until they were 13 and 14.
Oh, so they're older?
Viking fans.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're all Vikings because that's what they were raised. But by the time I went back, my dad was a Packer fan always. So then I was 5 and I love
Hey,
Packers.
I'm a Vikings fan by civic duty because I have to be because I'm from here. So I mean, you get the better end of the deal in that family to be a fan. So yeah, your family growing up, were you youngest? Where were you at in the family?
So my brother and sister are 8 and 9 years older than me.
Okay.
And then I came along, and they were out of the house by the time I was in 4th grade, so I kind of felt like an only child.
Okay, so you felt, did they move out of New Richmond and they were gone?
My brother didn't.
Okay.
My sister made her way around Minnesota, Savage, and Burnsville, and then eventually made it back to Hudson. But yeah.
And you said your dad was in construction? Mm-hmm. A mom? Was she working?
She just took care of us.
Okay, that's
basically.
full-time.
It
Full-time
really
gig
is. And then
in-
she'd do this weird, like, canning company thing just in the summer when the fields were all
What was
whatever.
she can?
Beans, corn, like beets.
And forgive me my ignorance, like, did she grow them too, or did she just
No,
go to
it
random
was
fields
was
and take them and
literally
can?
a canning company, like a huge
she worked
like,
for the canning
company. Yeah.
Okay. I was just picturing her like gathering and just like side biz.
It kind of reminds me of like Laverne and Shirley. I know it's kind of aging me, but if you ever saw them working on like the line.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what my mom did, but it was vegetables.
Okay, but just per season, like during.
Yes,
okay.
just in summer. I know, it's so weird.
No, so New Richmond, growing up, what kind of things were you into growing up?
I was the typical cheerleader. I was on the dance team.
Okay.
We had a really awesome marching band, which I know everyone makes fun of me.
Were you in it?
Of course. Yes, and I twirled the flag. I played the saxophone on the months we weren't marching.
Yeah.
But, you know, the outfits were just much better to twirling the flag than...
Nice. Cheerleading, marching band, saxophone. This is... Okay.
Yeah.
What else were you into?
I mean, that took up all my time.
Okay.
I mean, I loved it. Like, I was on the dance team. You know, it literally I was a football cheerleader, so that went into the basketball season, and then I was on the dance team for that, and then went right into the spring, and then I was in the marching band.
How many people did you graduate with?
138.
Okay, that's not it's not super small.
No,
But
it wasn't.
Yeah, I've heard of smaller towns.
Right.
First job, what would you do for work?
I worked at a pizza place in Richmond called Cozy Corner.
Cozy Corner.
Mm-hmm.
Is it still there?
That's, oddly enough, it's been a couple different things, and now that's actually that EF5 bar that we had talked about a little earlier.
Let's go there because I think it's such an interesting thing. Like without hesitation, I said, "What is New Richmond known for?" You're like, a tornado that happened in the 1800s. I'm like, wait, what? So yeah, explain. Like New Richmond is known for what?
Yes, I mean that is ironically the thing we're known for. And
Does it have a name, the tornado? Or is it just called
it
the
was
New Richmond tornado?
It's just the New Richmond tornado. So if like you had went in and said top 10 tornadoes in the United States, New Richmond still is in the top 10.
Okay.
I know we were like ahead of Joplin till Joplin happened.
Yeah.
But it was just because there was a circus in town and all of the local patrons were there and the tornado came through and just wiped it out. And then once they rebuilt, it was New Richmond.
Okay. So
Yeah.
one of the top 10 deadliest tornadoes. It's not
Yes.
the best thing to be known for, but
No.
that's what I was thinking. I'm like, it's a small town. Why was it the deadliest? And you explained it because there was a circus in town
Yeah.
and people were just unprotected from what was it? How bad was the tornado?
An EF5.
EF5 tornado.
Yeah.
So,
It's huge.
but that history echoes today. Like
Yeah.
restaurants are named after
Yep.
EF5.
And
Is
there's
it-
like little historic signs all over the town, like this is where it happened and this was rebuilt here. And it's just
Okay.
kind of cute.
Awesome. So there's a lot of history there. Growing up, you worked at a pizza place. Talk about what else did you get into as far as work goes?
Well, I did that because it was called Cozy Corner, and it was similar to the 90210 back in the day, like
Oh.
Peach Pit.
Okay.
So it was like the coolest place to work.
Yeah.
So if I was missing a game or missing something, I just knew all my friends were going to come back
That's-
in right after.
That's like where everyone went. It's like the Max and Saved by the Bell.
Yeah. So like New Richmond was just that cute like Friday Night Lights kind
Okay.
of town,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, we just had a blast with each other, and it was the 80s. So
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine we'd have sock hops after our football games,
wow.
and all that really was is we just had to take our shoes off for a
Yeah.
dance. But because people laugh like they think it's the 50s, I'm like, no, really, it was just because they didn't want our shoes on the gym floor. So it was just a dance in our socks. But
I think we need to bring that back, a sock hop.
oh my gosh, it was so much fun.
I honestly never knew why it was called a sock hop.
That's why.
I guess I didn't care either because I never really looked it up.
Right.
I think that'll come back because TikTok videos, like everyone's dancing nowadays. We should bring back
Yeah.
the sock hop.
Let's do it.
Okay, talk about after life in New Richmond. Where did you go after high school?
So I went to school to be a legal secretary.
Okay.
And so I was working by the time I was 19 in downtown Minneapolis. Like it was just,
Did you go to school for that or you just went straight to work?
at Inver Hills. So it was just a 1-year degree though.
Yeah.
So then went there and then got a job in Minneapolis. And
Downtown
then
Minneapolis.
Downtown,
From New
right
Richmond.
in the
Talk about
multi-foods
that-
tower.
Talk about that transition. From,
It was crazy.
Do
it was
you remember
crazy.
what you thought or just remember seeing it?
I just
a
remember
building
going
taller
for
than
the
3 stories.
interviews and
Yeah.
not even knowing how to drive. Like I've never been on the downtown streets of Minneapolis driving myself,
Yeah.
right? To be with my parents or a friend. It was crazy. But then, I'd say after the first year, because it was in the multi-foods tower, right in the center of everything and all of the, the skyways. And
Yeah.
it's like pretty soon I just felt like country girl living the city life.
Yeah.
And then I could go back to the country girl again. And I
that
loved
was
it.
always the goal is to get back.
Yeah. And well, I traveled from New Richmond to Minneapolis every single
Oh, so
day.
you didn't live in Minneapolis?
No, I lived in New Richmond still.
Wow. So
Yeah.
half your life you spent in a car.
Yeah.
What was the first car you drove?
1976 Monte Carlo.
What color?
Blue.
All right.
Blue. It was a piece of crap. But
It got you from
but I
Richmond
got it, yeah.
to
Until,
downtown Minneapolis every day.
Oh no! But you
Oh,
said my
yeah, okay.
first car.
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
still just my high school car. Then I went to a little Dodge Horizon or
Okay.
something, and then finally when I got my job in Minneapolis, I went and got this fantastic red Dodge Daytona.
Okay, nice.
It was
I love it.
flashy, and from that point I said I'm never gonna drive a used car again because I had so many problems and breakdowns with those
Yeah.
other two. And I haven't. I've had a car payment my whole life.
Hey,
It's just one of those things.
It's one of those. Hey, I'm gonna be paying my student loans for the rest of my life. That's what I figure. At least you got to drive something. Like I'm just
Right.
paying that. So you working downtown Minneapolis. What were you doing for work?
Legal secretary.
Legal secretary. How long did you do that for?
So I did that for 6 years in Minneapolis. And then from that point, I got married and we were trying for kids, and I was just having a really rough time. And they had made me like the office manager by then, and just, I'd leave at 6 in the morning and not get home till 6 at night. And so my doctor just said, you need to get some of that stress off of you.
Yeah.
So then I went back home to my little town in Richmond and worked for one of the guys, in Richmond, which is just much more mellow setting than Minneapolis, just your average legal secretary stuff. And I got pregnant, like right as soon as I calmed down with my life. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
And then I did go back to St. Paul for 2 years to be a legal secretary. But then that traveling, I was just done. I thought St. Paul would be a little bit better, but the traffic.
So kind of in those transitions, I mean, did you enjoy the work that you were doing? Was it just a means to an end, or?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
The detail.
Yeah, I mean, I was an estate planning legal secretary, so it was a lot of wills and living wills, everything that had to do with that. And so I got to meet with a lot of people that were still in good health and just planning for their future. So I learned a lot through that.
That's great. And talk about those transitions. Was it hard for you to kind of give up that work and transition back?
It was.
Yeah? What was the hardest part, what would you say?
I think, just going from the stress in Minneapolis to the calmness in Richmond and then taking on St. Paul again was just, but everything made me stronger as I went through that. When I said I had my daughter, my dad was actually diagnosed with lung and brain cancer when I was pregnant with my first daughter. And so she was born on June 20th. My dad passed away on June 30th. So it was one of those things where you just put everything into perspective, right? And if you're not happy with what you're doing, life's too short. And so I think that in turn obviously makes a person stronger. I know you had suffered a family death, and it changes you.
It does.
And pretty soon all the things that you thought were such a big deal to take on really aren't.
Oh, yeah, they are. Thanks for kind of sharing that part of your story. And you're right. I mean, sometimes it takes something like that to put things in perspective. And so how old were you at that time having a child? And then
27.
27.
Yeah.
And so you've had a career. I mean, that's a good age to figure it out. I mean, I think sometimes people are still thinking about those things at 40, 50.
Right.
But to have life experience, work experience, transition, I think you experienced a lot before 27. So then at 27, you have a kid, your dad passes away. What shifted in your perspective at that point, and how did that change that next season?
That I was just tired of working a 9 to 5, traveling, not having the time with my baby that I wanted to.
Yeah.
And so oddly enough, I was in St. Paul still trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I don't know if they dropped a flyer off in our building or what it was, but it was about vending machines.
Yeah.
Like, hey, make your own money, do whatever, come to our banquet and see what it's all about.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I still don't know why.
Yeah.
In my head, I thought, cool, I'll go check it out. And I did. And then I started my own vending business and quit my job and went back to Richmond. And the first machines that they had were just like this little refrigerated, it was on the pop was on the inside.
Yeah.
And then you closed it, and then just all the chips and the candy were on the outside.
Yeah.
So I was able to go into all the small businesses in my town, the banks and such, and have them put them in their cafeteria. And they did it just because they knew me and trusted me. And then from there, I had went to this large factory thinking, oh, maybe they'll just keep it in their lobby because I knew they had regular vending business.
Yeah.
And then one of the guys is like, why don't you just do the full line vending? And I'm like, because I have no idea.
Yeah.
I just have these little snack machines. Like, what do you mean? And you know what? I went for it. And I did. And it was amazing. And I ran an entire vending business and went on to take 2 more factories into Richmond and 4 big ones in Hudson.
And so you would stock them, like you would
I
go
did it all myself. I mean, so my husband would help me like unload the trailers when they would come.
Yeah.
Da, 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 da. But I had a trailer that I actually like knew how to hook up, put it on.
Put in product,
Break
drive
Time
around.
Vending was my name.
Break Time Vending?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
And then we put shelves in, and I learned to back that trailer up. It took me so long to learn how to do that, but because everyone would say, "Oh, who backed that trailer up for you?" And
What
I'm like,
what was like the go-to product? Like we were like, oh, the Snickers are gonna kill. Like what was would you remember?
Oh, for sure. It was Doritos. And
Doritos.
Snickers. And then the main thing were, we have like, what's it called in our little town, River Falls? Like handmade cookies or, I'm totally spacing out what it is right now. But anyway, it were these little like special K bars.
Okay.
And I would put those in. I'd have to go pick those up in River Falls and just get them and freeze them.
You were hustling.
Yes.
You're like driving,
I was in
delivering,
the
backing
best,
up the trailer.
Yes, I was in the best shape of my life.
But
it was
you enjoyed
amazing.
it.
I did.
That is a lot different than being a legal secretary.
Oh, it was. And I mean, I had such a good time with it and learned so much. I mean, I had to order all the product. I had to go figure out how to get these machines, rent these machines.
Did you have the ones where you hit the button and it would like rotate and you get like
yes. Oh, yeah, the sandwich ones. Yeah. It was all of them. So it was the sandwich, the milk, the coffee, you know.
I do have a quick story about those ones. Northwest Athletic Club, we would have those rotating sandwich ones. And when you open the door, you can get the sandwich. And then that door remains open until you hit the button and then it locks.
Yeah.
So we would order a sandwich, eat it, or take it out of the thing. The door would be open, then I grabbed my friend's wallet, and I put it in the refrigerator, and I hit the button.
What?
he had to buy his wallet back because it was, like, rotating around. And we were just, like, laughing.
Oh, my gosh.
So that's my only vending machine story I have in the back pocket. But you had those machines. This is great. How long did you do this for?
So then I did that for 7 years. And in the meantime, I had 2 more daughters.
Okay.
And then 9/11 happened.
Okay.
And all of my factories that were working overtime and, there weren't any layoffs yet. Everything was good. My St. Croix press was my big one in Richmond, and they actually worked with the airlines to, like, make the pamphlets, went the back seats, and all of this stuff. And so it just, all of a sudden, there weren't any overtime workers. And then they were just cutting down on everybody and shifts and so forth. And then before, like, that vending company, I work 3 days a week. And I would just say they were like my little slot machines. Like I wouldn't have to work on those other days and knew I was making money.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And then it just
abruptly stopped.
And so there was another guy in town that was also a vendor. And then we would like take turns when we wanted to go on vacation. We would cover each other's routes.
Okay.
And so I just reached out to him and said, I'm just kind of done. And he had been trying to get quite a few of my factories for a while from me.
So you guys were like enemies.
Competitors, but friendly competitors.
Friendly competitors?
Yeah, we had kids in school together.
Okay.
And then, like I said, we would cover each other's routes eventually because you can't go on vacation because your machines don't get filled.
Yeah.
So, and he actually bought me out.
Okay.
And then I went back to doing something, working 9 to 5 again, and I got my insurance licenses for property health insurance and casualty. So car and auto and the whole works.
Yeah, I mean, interesting that you and KP had a similar story where she was flight attendant, and then she said the same words, then 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
Sometimes we are dissatisfied with work and we choose a different direction, whether it's we don't want to make the drive from St. Paul to New Richmond or whatnot. And then sometimes it's something that happens and we have no control over that pushes us into a new direction.
Right.
Can you say a little bit more about that? I mean, processing that, I think a lot of people that might be listening might be, instead of, then 9/11 happened, I feel like their story might be, then COVID happened.
Right.
So I think there are people in this moment that are probably transitioning and feeling the same way that you were in that moment, going from 7 years of a business that you were running and had control over and was doing well.
Right.
And then I got back to this 9 to 5. Looking back at that, pull any wisdom that you have from that transition that you can think of.
I mean, I just felt helpless, to be honest. So it wasn't as much as I would struggle, I was totally out of control of the businesses, flourishing and being able to fight their way through it. So it was a struggle to just watch everybody that I knew personally and professionally just, to plateau and didn't know where we were all going to go from there. And I just, I don't know what it has been about my life, but I just always know when to get into something and out of something at the right time.
Yeah.
And so I just thought instead of continuing to put my family into further danger from not, getting stuck with all this debt of these machines that I haven't paid off, that it was just time to. And, I pretty much broke even, which I don't know. I mean, I guess then I just looked at it as it was a job that I did for 7 years.
Yeah.
But I feel like because by the time my family did get out, I put a lot of my savings back into it before I decided enough is enough. So, I had hopes of, doing that forever and making money and hiring people to do it for me.
and life, more often than not, turns out a different way than we plan, right?
Yeah.
And so here you are. Talk a little bit about the transition from, back to the 9 to 5. How did you end up in real estate from that point to this?
So I sold insurance. I got my insurance licenses, went to a couple different companies with that, and then ended up at State Farm. I was working in their corporate, kind of running, they were called ESP offices, which is basically emergency service provider.
Okay.
So I would just basically sit in these offices and run them, sell if somebody needed to have something sold, but they didn't want me out soliciting until a new agent would come in. So I was just kind of this person that took care of this, got paid well, my benefits were awesome. And then a State Farm agent came from Green Bay and took over the Richmond office. So I went to run that with him, and then he just asked me to stay on.
Okay.
And then we ended up actually being really close friends with his family, with everything. And I worked for him for 5 years. So I was in insurance for 12. And then you just get burnt out. In our little town, I mean, we had little people that would just, why is my bill 22 cents more than it was? And, you're so busy. And it was just. And
you longed for those vending machine days.
Yes, I did. And, people would just call in and you'd end up being a counselor sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I can't pay my insurance bill because of this, this, and this. And it's like, oh, my gosh. So then from there, my younger cousin, has been very successful in real estate.
Yeah.
He had been on me for years. Like, if you can sell insurance, you can sell real estate. Just do this with me. I'll be great at it. And so it was finally after my first daughter graduated from high school and my second daughter had her driver's license and then my youngest was in middle school that I'm like, I can take on real estate now, right?
Yeah.
And so I went and got my licenses. I got Minnesota and Wisconsin within a month of each other because I just heard the struggle's a little bit more if you do one and then try to learn the other.
Yeah.
And then he worked for Edina Realty, and I worked with him and learned the ropes, but quickly found out working with relatives isn't always.
We've heard. We're going to have a completely different podcast about working with relatives. I think there's some themes that we've picked up in other podcasts and interviews. But
Right.
So you started there at Edina, and then kind of how do you transition to the next spot?
Well, it was, like I said, it was always one of those situations I got into something at a good time. I joined another team in Hudson at Keller Williams, and was just getting started with them, and they taught me more than anyone had up until that point. But then all of a sudden we had 3 buyer's agents, and I was one of the buyer's agents, but I was the last to come or have the most experience, so then I was just getting next to no leads. And I'm like, I can't keep doing this.
Yep.
So my next step from there was one of my best friends had an uncle that had, his own personal real estate business near Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Yep.
She's like, he's looking for somebody to, in the area, let's do this. He'll open an office for you in Richmond. And so I thought, I'm going to do this. So we found a office, rented it, redid the whole thing, and I sat in this office and realized nobody comes in to, you don't really need it anymore.
Yeah.
The real estate office to come in and say, hey, I want to buy a house. So then he shut that down and still wanted me to continue to work, but then everything he promised me wasn't happening.
Yeah.
Right? So, if you can believe it, I then decided to give my cousin another shot at Edina.
Okay.
And that didn't even last 8 months.
So desperation, you're like, it can't be worse. And then it was.
Right. And then I took one last stop at Century 21. One of my good friends from high school knew somebody.
Yeah.
I loved that team. They were amazing. But again, just not enough business was coming in.
Yep.
But what happened with my many years of real estate is I gave every brokerage 1 year.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe I would be 2 to 3 months in. I'm like, this isn't going to work, but how do I know? So it was like Edina got 2, Century 21 got 1, Keller got 1, and then the one with my friend's uncle.
Yeah.
And then finally, one of my guys from high school, he's a lender, he had been working with another agent at KLRE that was from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And she was like, I could just really use some help over here. And so Eric said, she said to reach out to her. So she set up a meeting with Megan, and I came over to KLRE, and I've loved it, ever since. And,
So how long was that? How long ago?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
And so you've had, experience with a lot of different brokerages.
Yeah.
Not just one.
Mm-hmm.
Several. What would you say is significant about KLRE in kind of looking back at your
Right.
the other places you've been?
Overall, especially in the beginning before I formed the relationships I did with everybody here, it was just the lead generation. It wasn't nothing I had ever seen before because as I told you, I struggled to get leads, and you can only have so many family and friends that are going to move within a year. And so I was amazed with that. I'm turning leads away. I don't even know what to do. I love this. And so that's what got me hooked.
Yep.
Because the day that I came in to meet with Megan, Chris was actually in the office.
Yeah.
And I had only seen the billboards and everything. And, there were all kinds of other...
He's a lot smaller in person.
Yeah. There were a lot of, younger agents running around in their suits. And I was just expecting one of them to be Chris.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Megan's like, you want to meet Chris? And I'm like, sure. And he comes around with his sweatshirt and a stocking cap on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love this guy. He's just so down to earth and approachable and didn't need to be flaunting anything to say, hi, I'm Chris Lindahl, I'm the owner here. I knew from that point. And then when I did meet with Chris that day, I told him that day about some of my experiences. And I said, if I don't make real estate work with you, I'm getting out of real estate. And it's been amazing.
It's fun to, you said something about timing. I feel like it sounds like the life that you had prior to prepared you for your time here. You know how to sell. You know how to hustle.
Yeah.
Small town, you know how the difficulty is getting leads. Now you put that all together. I'm not surprised that you're successful here because you have strong work ethic in your history, and then here we giving you the leads. And when you put that together, like you said, you can't not succeed.
Right.
So you have a lot of experience, especially in real estate. Being here at KLRE and knowing how the culture is and the supports, what would you tell a newer agent here that what do you know now that you wish you knew when you were first getting started?
I wish I knew there were organizations like this. So many times you start out and you're on your own.
Yeah.
And it was a struggle. And I think I also wish I would have learned to ask for help a little sooner. You just thought you were going to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I probably missed out on leads and opportunities just because I was so afraid to just ask for help.
Yeah.
And it'd be something so simple. And I'm like, I just asked so long ago. And I think the other thing is just when you're starting out and you're meeting with new people and you just feel like they're going to know that I'm new and, it's just embarrassing and what if I flub up and whatever.
Yeah.
To just always know that we know more about them no matter what, right? So you just sell yourself and, convince them that you know what you're talking about. And if you don't, just be honest and say, hey, I'm going to find out who I can get that answer from and move on. But if anyone were, thinking about being at one brokerage versus here, it would definitely be, I've never been, this is 2 years for me, which I said I gave every other place 1 year.
Yeah.
I can't see myself leaving, and it's a lot to do with the leads, but mostly just to do with the relationships.
Yeah.
The mentors, I mean, when I started hanging out, like we had that conversation a little earlier, with, a lot of the top 10 agents, they make you want to be better and you want to be like them.
Yeah.
And Chris always says that, to hang around with people that are successful. And I mean, this past year has really been amazing for me. And I just think it's them, but then also the younger agents are so much fun, right? You get to know them when they come in, and I'm one of the people I had like a pool party for the younger agents this summer. Nice. And I say younger, I should just say newer, right? But most of them are younger than me. But then just to form those relationships and to know that, they can trust you. And, some of the older agents like made fun of me and, look at you being all friendly. And I'm like, it's just, the more people the more people you surround yourself with, and I can help them and they help me, and we just bounce ideas off each other. And
that's great. I love that theme. And as you're sharing that, I think about what you shared earlier about when you were helping people with their living wills. It wasn't a task. You're talking about people,
right?
And the vending machines, they knew you. That's why it wasn't they wanted. It's not that they wanted vending machines. Like they knew you. And I think that's the biggest theme that has been woven in all the interviews that I've been part of. Is it's about the people.
Yeah.
And it's not even about the leads. It's that might have got you in the door, but what keeps you here are the relationships and people. And that's something that I think we all need to remember, whatever field that we're working in, that when we take a task and we make it more about the people than it is about the final product, we're going to be successful. And so I think there's a common theme that I've just heard you share throughout your story, and even now, that you're focused on in the right place, which is with people. So I'm grateful for our time.
Yeah.
I wish we had more, but I think what you shared is key. And so I'm excited to see your continued success here. And I'm just excited and glad you took some time to share your story.
Great. It was fun.
All
Thanks.
right. Take care.